Down in Missouri, where the borders of Kansas and Oklahoma meet, there's a stretch of road folks call the Devil's Promenade. Been drawing curious folks since the 1800s. Not for the scenery, for what floats above it. Locals call it the Spook Light. Orb of light, size of a basketball, glowing orange-yellow like a harvest moon. Shows up most nights, dancing above that empty road. Sounds pretty, don't it? Till it notices you're watching. Notice something strange, too. It appears most when the moon's dark, when the stars are right. And always, there's this pattern. 3 nights before someone goes missing, witnesses say the light splits into 3, like it's deciding who to take. Army Corps of Engineers, scientists from universities, hell, even UFO hunters, they've all studied it. Can't explain it. But the old Cherokee folks, they knew. Called it the spirit light. Said it was a warrior soul, still searching these hills for his lost love. Government team came out in 2018. Set up all kinds of equipment. Readings showed that light's putting out radiation we can't explain. Heat that ain't heat. Light that ain't light. And something else. Sound frequencies that match human screams, slowed down to almost nothing. Thing about the spook light, it learns. Back in the 60s, folks would try to chase it in their cars. Now, it chases you, like it remembered all those headlights following it. Figured out what fear tastes like. Started hunting instead of haunting. Met a trucker last month at a stop outside Joplin. Man's hands shook so bad he couldn't light his cigarette. Said he was driving that road late. Saw the light in his mirror. Thought it was another truck at first. Until it started moving wrong. That light? It chased him. Got so close, he could feel the heat through his back window. Said it was like looking at the sun, but wrong somehow. Like something wearing light as a skin. Then his radio started screaming. Not static, mind you. Screaming. Modern folks say it's swamp gas, car lights, something natural. But here's what they can't explain. What happens to folks who see it up close. How their watches stop. How they lose time. How some of them come back different. Speaking about things they couldn't possibly know. Saw it myself back in '95. Pulled over thinking I could get a good look. That light? It noticed. Started moving toward my truck. Pulsing like a heartbeat. Temperature dropped so low my windshield frosted over. In August. That night in '95, what I didn't tell you is what those whispers said. Started naming people I knew. People who disappeared on dark roads over the years. Then it started naming people who hadn't vanished. Yet, sometimes I still check on those names, make sure they're okay. So if you're ever down where Missouri meets Kansas meets Oklahoma, and you see a light floating above that dark road, don't stop. Don't look back. And whatever you do, don't listen to what comes through your radio. Some warnings ain't just stories, folks. And some roads are better left untraveled. Stevens Point, Wisconsin, 1957. Young bride named Mary Sullivan driving home from her wedding reception on Bloody Bride Bridge. At least that's what folks call it now. Back then it was just County Bridge 226. Amazing how one night can change a name forever. Story goes Mary was alone in her daddy's Chevrolet. New husband was supposed to meet her at their honeymoon cabin. Some romantic notion about separate cars, separate journeys, coming together at midnight. Problem is, she never made it. Witnesses say they saw her white dress through the windshield, veil still on. Said she was crying, makeup running black down her face. Not wedding day tears neither. These were different, like she'd seen something that changed her. Bridge was different back then. No guardrails, just wooden posts and wire. They found the Chevy next morning wrapped around one of those posts. Driver's door wide open, engine still running. That white dress spread out across the front seat, perfectly arranged, but no Mary. Here's where it gets strange. Every year since then, around midnight on her anniversary, folks see her, standing in the middle of that bridge, wedding dress soaked through, holding her veil in one hand. Some say she flags down cars, asks for rides, says she needs to get to her cabin. Her husband's waiting. Met a local sheriff last winter drinking coffee at 3 a.m. in my regular stop. Man looked like he'd seen a ghost. Turns out he had. Responded to a call about a woman in white on the bridge. Standard procedure, thought it was just kids playing pranks. Until he got close enough to see her face. Said she walked right up to his patrol car, pressed her hands against his window, left perfect handprints in the frost, on the inside of the glass. Temperature in his car dropped so low his coffee froze solid. Then she whispered something that made him request a transfer the next day. But here's what most folks don't know. What the old-timers whisper about in bars. Night Mary disappeared. Her husband never made it to that cabin either. Found his car 3 days later, 50 miles away. Inside, a single black and white photo. Their first dance at the reception, except in this version, Mary's face was turned toward the camera and her eyes, well, they weren't human anymore, and every year more sightings. Not just on the bridge now. People see her walking along Highway 66, always at night, always in that dress, always asking for rides to a cabin that burned down 60 years ago. Local kids think it's romantic, you know? Leave flowers on the bridge, take pictures in wedding dresses. Some even try to summon her, flash their headlights 3 times, play Here Comes the Bride on their radios. Most times, nothing happens. But sometimes those cars don't start again. Sometimes those kids come back changed. Speaking in wedding vows from 1957, talking about a husband they need to meet at midnight. Drove that road myself last spring. Just as the sun was setting, caught something white in my mirror. Thought it was road mist at first. Until I heard wedding bells through my radio. Static cleared up just long enough to hear a woman crying, begging someone to tell her why. Why he didn't love her enough to make it to that cabin. So if you're ever driving through Stevens Point and you see a woman in white standing on that bridge, don't stop. Don't offer her a ride. And whatever you do, don't look in your rearview mirror. Some brides, they're still waiting for their perfect ending, and they'll take anyone who stops to that cabin in the woods, whether you want to go or not.